Hey, what's up, Math 8? This is Mr. Bainey, and we're going to be looking at lesson 7.2. This is going to be broken up into two parts. So we have day one today. We're going to focus mainly on equations that have decimals in them. And before we take a look at the steps, I want to first show you example number one. So we have 0.2 m plus 9.5 equals 12.7. Remember that our goal here is to get m by itself. So there's really only going to be one extra step in here, and that is to get rid of these decimals. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at where my decimal point is in each of these terms, and I want to look at how many times do I have to move the point over so that it's at the end of the number. So we're mainly looking at getting rid of the decimal and changing all of these to whole numbers. They're a little bit easier to deal with. So you can see that I've only have one place value after decimal, one here and one here. So you want to look at the number that has the most. This happens to have the same amount in each one. So I want to multiply by some power of 10 so that I move the decimal point over. So our first step is going to be multiplying by either 10, 100, 1,000, and so on. And so in this case, I can multiply everything by 10. So if I multiply everything by 10, let me draw my line down, the equal sign here. 10 times this is just going to move it over one time. Okay, 10 times this is going to move the decimal point over one time. That's sort of the shortcut. If you don't believe me, just put in 0.2 times 10 into your calculator, and you'll see that it's just 2, and then we have an m also. Then plus 9.5 becomes, 95. And then this 10 makes the decimal point move over 1 in 12.7, and we get 127. And from here, we get an equation that kind of looks like stuff from 7.1 or even before, because this is a two-step equation. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that we have just a variable on one side. If it's on both sides, we want to make a 0 with one of them. But we only have the variable over here, so we're good. Now this is just a two-step equation, so let's make our constant that has the variable on that side. Let's make that a 0, so I need to subtract 95. I get 2m, and sorry, I'm going to circle my 0 right there. 2m equals, that gives me 32. 127 minus 95 is that. And the last step is to divide by 2 on both sides, and that gives me my solution of m equals 16. Okay, so let's go through what the actual steps are. Remember at the first step, we had to multiply to get rid of our decimal. So I go over here, please go ahead and copy. We're going to multiply, oops, by 10, 100, 1,000. We call these powers of 10. Multiplying by 10 with everything is going to make it move over one decimal, move one space, one decimal place, or you can think place value. Okay, multiplying by 100 with everything is going to move it 2 spaces, and so on. So you can relate the number of spaces to the number of zeros that are in that power of 10. And also keep in mind that if I multiply this by 10, I have to multiply this by 10, I have to multiply this by 10. Even if there's no decimal here, or if it's at the end, it doesn't matter. Remember that in any equation, whatever you do to one side, you have to do the same exact thing to the other side. So I can't choose, let's multiply this by 100 and then this by 10 over here. You can't do that. You have to choose the same number. So that's step number one. Step number two is you're going to get all variables to one side. I worded this differently in the last couple lessons. It was make a 0 with one of the variables. That's because we had variables on both sides. If there is variables on both sides, you make a 0. So I'll put in parentheses here that you're going to make a 0 if you have a variable on both sides. And number 3 is you're going to make a 0 with the constant. In example number 1, that was the plus 95. That's the constant. That's on the same side as the variable. And then step 4 is we're going to make a 1 by multiplying or dividing. And not so sure why there's a 5th and 6th step. We can actually complete this right here. Once you start doing much more difficult problems, there will be additional steps. I'll just take out steps 5 and 6 here. But things like combining like terms that we did the previous day, and also the distributed property, you might have to use that as well. Okay, so keep that in mind that I could put 6 steps here, but you're not going to see any of that in this lesson. You may in the future. Example 2, we have 0.37 plus 1.1x minus, oh, there's a typo here. I apologize. Go ahead and put in equals here in the middle. That should be 0.37 plus 1.1x equals 2.65x minus 1.18. By the way, I'm saying all these numbers wrong. I apologize. I should be reading it by place value. That's going to help you, I think about some of these problems. And so I should be saying 37 hundredths plus 1 and 1/10 x equals 2 and 65 hundredths x minus 1 and 18 hundredths. So if you look at place value, that could tell us actually what we need to multiply by. So let's look at where our decimal points are. And we're going to look at how many digits are after it. And in all of these numbers, let's see, there's 2 place values after decimal. There's 1 here, 2 here, and 2 here. You want to pick the one that has the most, and you could do, it's either that one or that one or that one. You know, it's there's 2. So that means we're going to multiply everything by 100, because that is going to allow us to get rid of the variable. I'm sorry, not the variable, but the decimal point. So multiply everything by 100, and let's see what we get. 100 times 37 hundredths will be 37. Plus 100 times this. Now we have to move it over twice, remember. Now there isn't 2 places after the decimal, 2 place values or 2 numbers. So we have to add in a 0, so it becomes 110x. And that equals 100 times this is 265, because I have to move it over twice. X, don't forget that, minus 100 times this is 118. And highly encourage you to use a calculator, because you do get some big numbers in these types of problems. When you're multiplying by 10 or 100, it is going to make them bigger. Next, we want to look at, do we have variables on both sides? And yes, we do. We got looks like 110x and 265x. One on the left side, one on the right side. So we got to make one of those a 0. And I'm going to choose to make this one a 0 on that side, which means I subtract the same thing over here. It's my 0. I'm left with 37 is equal to 155x minus 118. And in my next step, I want to get rid of this constant, or this minus 118. So plus 118 on both sides. There's my 0. I get 155 here. And then finally, going to divide by, divide to get my 1. All right, 155 divided by 155 is my 1. And then over here, we'll give my answer. So the answer is 1. X equals 1. Okay, now that you've seen a couple of examples, I would like you to try one problem. So here's your turn. $20 plus 1 and 25/100ths x equals 15 plus 2 and 5/10ths x. Go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to put up the solution to this. It's going to pop up here in about 5 seconds. So please pause it. I decided to multiply everything in here by 100 to help me get rid of the decimal. So you'll see 100 times 20 gave me 2,000, 100 times 1.5, and then so on. I'm not going to explain every single little thing step by step, but you can see it all here. And what I have in green is the steps that I took. So what I did to both sides of the equation is all in green. The blue is my equations I get after I do that step. Once I follow through all the steps, you see I made a 0 with one of the variables because we had a variable on both sides. And then I made a 0 with this, my constant here. And then I made my 1 here at the end. Okay. Definitely use a calculator. These were much bigger numbers than the other examples. So please make your corrections on what you've tried on your turn. And let's go ahead and move on to the very last example, the word problem. Now on the assignment, which is on the back of this page, you are going to see a few word problems, and you have to think about how to set them up, and what the variable is, what it represents, and all that. So we're going to go through that on example 3. Here we go. JTunes Music charges a monthly subscription fee of a $2 monthly subscription fee and 50 cents per downloaded song. Fugal Music charges 75 cents per downloaded song. At how many downloaded songs are the cost of JTunes and Fugal the same? So, how many downloaded songs means that is our variable. That's our X or our D or whatever variable you want to use. Also, at the end of the question, it says, when are the costs the same? So we want to find the amount of songs that if we bought the same amount of songs from JTunes as Fugal Music, when would that be the same? So is it the same when you buy 10 songs each, or 20 songs each, or 30 songs each, and so on? So we need to put this into an equation. And first, I want to take a look at each of these music services. So JTunes, the cost is going to equal a $2 monthly subscription fee and 50 cents per downloaded song. Per is our keyword here, and downloaded song is our X. So that means 50 cents times X, because if it's one song, it's 50 cents. 2 songs would be $1. 3 songs is $1.50, and so on. So that's going to tell us that we're going to add 50 cents, that's 0.50, times X. Okay, that's the cost for JTunes. The cost for Fugal Music. This one's a little bit more simple because it just says they charge 75 cents per downloaded song. Again, that per downloaded song per X means that looks like there's no monthly subscription fee, so we're not adding anything to it. It's just 75 cents per X or per downloaded song. And that's it. We want both of these costs to be the same. So that means that 2 plus 50 cents times X, we want that to be equal to 75 cents times X. We want the cost to be the same. We also want the X's to be the same, the number of songs. So in order to solve this, we're going to multiply both sides by, it looks like 100 because I want to move it over twice. Okay, I'm going to go through this one quickly. Setting up the equation is the hardest part of this. So I'm just going to, like I said, go through this quick. We get 200 plus 50x equals 75x. I'm going to subtract 50x on both sides. And I get 200 equals 25x. And when I divide by 25 on both sides, I'm not going to show this step, but I am dividing both sides by 25, I get 8. And this means 8 downloaded songs. It'll take 8 songs. If you find the cost for 8 songs for JTunes and the cost for 8 songs for Fugal Music, you will get the same exact cost for both. Okay. For any other number of songs, they're going to have a different cost. So that's all there is for this lesson. Remember, the back page of this is the homework. The word problems are going to be challenging, but please give it a try. Please write down something. Please, write down, some equation. If you don't know how to write an equation, maybe try to think about it in a different way and solve it anyway. That at least gives you, it tells me at least that you are thinking about the problem, you kind of understand what the situation is, but writing it into that math equation is a difficult part, okay? Good luck on the assignment. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.